Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Today we're taking a look at a game from 1994, released exclusively in Japan on the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis. This is the Hybrid Front. Thank you, digitized voice from the 90s. This is a strategy war game with a little bit of strategy RPG in there, as we'll see. This was developed by Sega, Oniro, and HIC, as I said, 1994. And up until now, had only been released in Japan and had never had an English translation until this year. In June, the people at Nebulous Translations, the team there, who had been working on this thing since 2017, released an actual translation patch, not only for the game, but also translated the manual as well. They did a damn good job on this thing. I mean, they actually had to, one of the reasons it took so long is because they had to find people who could actually hack the game files properly to change the UI in order to fit the English words where it previously had been the Japanese kanji. They did a shit ton of work, and it paid off because this is a classic, bit of a cult classic considering how little reach outside Japan it's had. But in terms of just the quality of what's on hand, yeah, this is something to behold. So, we'll just let the title crawl here while I talk about it. So, this was written by Masahiro Noda, who was an award-winning Japanese science fiction author, which explains why there's actually quite a bit of text and story into this. This is a very narrative-driven game. It's a 26-mission long strategy war game, as I said, taking place in the 26th century. There, Masahiro Noda. This is a very kind of hard sci-fi story that basically concerns a group of what's referred to as mules. In this version of the future, corporations ruling from an orbit have pretty much dominion over Earth, and the kind of puppet organization that they have there called Quito that runs everything. You'll see the description here as things goes on. Yeah, there was a dispute in 2302 between Earth and the corporations, and, well, two orbital conflicts occurred. Yeah. These corporations assume full orbital control as a result. They form an organization together in an alliance between the six major ones, the Cooperations Community of Orbital Negotiation, COON. Mechanical designer Kunio Aoi, he does a lot of good work. And yeah, as you can imagine, having full orbital control gives you a really good high ground. And yeah, that happened quite a bit. Well, to Green Hill, because that's a Sonic reference. Earth proposes a sea fire. So yeah, the corporations are in charge of the planet now. The guidance of Cocoon, the Pan-Earth Treaty Organization is formed. So they're basically their puppets now. Slowly walks the path of restoration. Original scenario, Sega Enterprise Limited, corruption of Oniro Limited. And here are our main characters here. A certain ragtag group of people earn their living by carrying materials around the ruined planet. People call them mules. And that's us. So that seems like a good amount of backstory, but if it went by a bit too quick, you can check out this here. So first off, we have the index section, which includes character profiles on all your main characters, and a history index. So if we look at the character index here, you get descriptions of all the characters that you've unlocked, as in the ones that you've encountered this. So obviously, you don't get the character portraits for the ones you haven't. All these characters, the illustrations done by an artist by the name of Jun Suemi, who also did all the artwork that's in the manual as well. You get a full background on the characters and stuff like that. Yeah, Jun Suemi, who'd done a lot of work previously for other video games, notably the Wizardry series. He's done a whole bunch of cover art for them. Also did the character designs for Front Mission 2, as it turns out. This game has got... It's not really related to Front Mission in any way, but the aesthetic between this and the first Front Mission game is actually fairly similar, I find, which is nice because I like that quite a bit. In terms of gameplay, this one is closer to the what's called the Daisen Ryaku series. That's a series of, it's called Great Strategy in Japanese. Basically, it's a series of strategy games, mostly World War II based, but some a bit more modern. Started in 1985 on a PC 98. And that one would have a big influence over the years, influencing everything from Advanced to the creation of Advanced Wars on the Super Famicom, the Famicom slash Nintendo, and of course, Nectaris, Military Madness. That's another one that had strong influence. There were two games from that series on the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive. One of them was Super Daisen Ryaku, and the other Advanced Daisen Ryaku. I think that one actually got translated and ported in Western audiences. I can't remember the exact name of that one. But this one is standalone. It isn't related to the other ones, but it kind of has a lot in common, so it's kind of like an informal trilogy in certain ways. Lots of cool characters here. The character designs are obviously a little bit stylized and kind of anime-esque, but not really. They're actually far more grounded, which I like that particular aesthetic quite a bit. It reminds me a bit of 90s OVAs rather than, more modern animes. Which is, if this, honestly, the fact that this game, all this background went into it, and all we got is just the one game, there's, no other surrounding materials, stuff like that, I'd say it's a goddamn shame, because there's enough here that you could do some serious work with it. So that was a character index. History index. If you want to go more about the backstory before jumping into the game proper, you've got everything from 1998 onwards to the 26th century, so you've got a lot of stuff to go over. But added bonus, those little blue things here, click on any of them, and basically discover that those are hyperlinks to a Wikipedia article on the actual events that are being described here. So the New Oil War, use of tactical nukes, not fun. So yeah, basically there's a bunch of resource wars in the early 21st century. Eventually the move to hydrogen energy sources. The Corporate Assistance Act, written in order to give corporations more rights, which would in theory ensure that they would be able to continue supporting the nation of the earth who are more and more dependent on them. That's where it started. Basically the global economies were in shambles due to all these, the resource wars and stuff like that. And so the corporations were entrusted with greater degrees of independence, including the ability to form their own police forces due to the fact they were being targeted for terrorist organizations and such. There you go. A little bit of lag there in my emulator. So yeah, you can go through a whole bunch of information like that. There's a lot of backstory in this game, but we're not here for the backstory, we're here for the actual story. So, let's load up into a current save here. Just gonna load up there. Alright, here we are. I had to load up from a previous save because basically you can save anytime during a mission, but you can't save before a mission starts. So you miss out on all the storylines. So here's how basically the story goes. You have your basic text. Essentially, it's kind of like chapters in a book, where each chapter, each mission has its own, description, post, and kind of describing the current situation, the current, narrative, character interactions, all that stuff in this kind of format here. Along with the character portraits telling you who's talking. And here explaining that there's a rebel faction within Pito that we've been dealing with recently, ever since we uncovered a crashed spacecraft that contained a data disk, highly encrypted data disk we recently took a look at. And it contains some kind of blueprint, which, as this guy is going to show, there you go. He's very interested in that blueprint there. Everybody is very interested in this blueprint. Must be for a weapon, which turns out it is the monopole gun. So, okay, so slight spoilers for a game from 1994. But basically, the monopole gun was developed from ruins found on Mars by the different corporations, who actually went to a little bit of an armed conflict over it, which reduced their power, which is why they're backing a rebel faction on Earth in order to weaken Pito in order to keep things, balance of power going. Basically, these ancient alien ruins on Mars contain technology for creating monopoles, magnetic monopoles, which is an actual real thing. When I said this was hard SF kind of story, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Magnetic monopoles are actually a theoretical particle in many different versions, theories of quantum physics and stuff like that, which could potentially, if harnessed properly, create wormholes, among other things. It's, that kind of level tech here. Also, it can be used to create a really powerful gun that you end up using in the final mission, which takes place on Olympus Mons on Mars, the biggest volcano in the entire solar system. You're parked there with this massive, fuck off WMD, while both the armies of Pedo and Cocoon are both converging on you and on each other too to try and possess it. So yeah, that's a good capstone on the game there, Mission 26. So let's see here. Basically, this is our briefing for our current situation. We recently liberated a Pedo base that was controlled by this rebel faction, liberated some persons who were captured there. Pedo flees on its way. The problem is the communication system is down, so we can't let them know that we're the good guys. And not to mention, the guy that we rescued just ran away. So there's no real proof within the whole, no proof of that rebel organization as of yet. That'll come later.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. There's a lot of very enthusiastic people talking on the soundtracks there. The soundtrack is actually done by Naofumi Hataya, Junko Shiratsu, and Sashio Ogawa. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Done a lot of work with Sega in the past, including the Sonic series, Golden Axe for some of them. This music has a very upbeat kind of tone to it, which kind of, ties into the tone of the game itself. It's a war game, so it's not, always happy. Let's face the fact, there's a lot of, messed up shit that happens. But it's never too grim or dark or anything like that. So it very much has that kind of tone, which is pretty cool. Now, so this screen here is for battle planning. So when I said that this had a little bit of a strategy RPG to it, what I meant was each one of the units that you'll be bringing into battle. Right now I got 20 units in my current roster that'll be for this mission. You start out with maybe like 5 or 6, and by the end of the game you get a whole lot more. So yeah, this is definitely the kind of game, if you're the kind of person who played like the new XCOMs or Hairbrained Schemes Battletech, something like that, and thought they were controlling there were too few people on your team, well, this is the kind of game where it gives you a hell of a lot more to work with. So you have, and speaking of vehicles, there is so many different units in this game. It is honestly a little bit overwhelming at times. Like, there are like just the number of different types of weapons, the number of different variations in terms of also that combined with the types of mobility that they have. So for instance, you have tanks, you have hover vehicles, you have hover tanks, you have anti-air vehicles, you have artillery vehicles, carriers, you have fighter planes, VTOLs, helicopters. You have, IFVs, APCs, infantry. Now, the infantry are all wearing, like, little powered armor or, powered exoskeletons. So they're already, pretty badass in and of themselves. Supply vehicles. And, of course, spaceships. Because, yeah, this game doesn't just take place on Earth. You start out on Earth, spend, a good third or half of the game there, and then you start going into space, actually have space battles between, armadas of spaceships before actually ending up on the moon, fighting there, and also on Mars eventually. As I mentioned, the final missions take place there. There's also missions that take place inside bases, there are missions that take place inside cities. So there is a whole bunch of different mission types and different terrains to fight on, which all have impact depending on the kind of vehicles, because, depending on mobility, that'll have impacts on where you can go and how fast you can go. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to keep in mind. So let's take a look here at ability screen to displays here. So let's take a look at this tank. This is the Tianzhuang tank. As you can see here, you get all the different stats for these things. Movement, fuel. Fuel and ammunition are important. Logistics are important things for this game here. Durability, air and ground defense, how resistant it is to attacks from the air or from the ground. Obviously a tank, yeah, they're kind of vulnerable from the top, so you want to avoid air vehicles as much as possible. And of course you have armament type for the ground, you have your weapon list. This one comes with 125mm artillery, 12.7mm machine gun, nasty against infantry right there, as well as some reactive armor. Not everything that gets equipped on your vehicles is just a direct weapon, of course. So, like for instance, the reactive armor has the ability to provide fixed evasion rate against live ammunition, excluding certain types of large calibers. So basically, this will make you harder hit with kinetic weaponry. You also have like your different weapons here. This one, the weapons of this one's equipment are direct weapons. You can see that if you look on the square on the right there. It has attack range, hit rate, damage per hit, and ammunition. Attack range of 1 means that this thing can only attack targets that are directly adjacent to it on the map, as we'll see. It can fire up to 4 shots per round, and it can fire 6 times before it runs out of ammunition for either of its weapons. So you have to be careful with that. And as you can see also, the reactive armor only has 1. So it's pretty much good for 1 shot of protection, but then, reactive armor being like explosives that blow off the armor when, they're attacked. Obviously, that's only good for 1 shot, so you have to be weary of that. Also, you can see there the attack accuracy. This thing is very, very good against armored targets with the artillery gun, and against unarmored, like regular vehicles, stuff like that, like non-tank vehicles, as well as most drones and infantry. That's where the machine gun comes in handy. Also, the machine gun can attack air targets. As you can see there, it has a 5 under the 1 column there. So not very accurately, but it can at least defend itself against air attacks, unlike with the 125mm artillery where it can't. So each vehicle has its own strengths and weaknesses. If we look at the Hedgehog here, which is complete opposite, this thing is really good against aircraft, as you can imagine. This is what you want to get attacking those. Also moves a little bit further and has a bit more fuel. Versus, let's say, the Shrike here. The Shrike here is artillery. This is an MLRS tank. Now, the thing about these ones, as you can see there, the attack range is 4. That means this thing is an indirect weapon. What that means is 2 things. 1, it can attack up to 4 spaces away without any fear of retaliation. And also means it can't fire if you just moved, unless it has a little S suffix next to the weapon name. There's a couple of different special properties for weapons. Like an S means that indirect attacks can be used even after moving. Something like T is basically used for, really powerful anti-ship lasers and some railguns and stuff like that, and it will hit everything in a straight line up to 3 tiles long, which also includes allies, so watch it. R means that it'll hit anything in the surrounding 6 tiles of its point of impact, also including allies. Incidentally, if you miss with an indirect attack and it'll hit one of the hexes surrounding your target, again, which could hit your allies. Friendly fire is not friendly in this game. There's also other different things, like, for instance, if we look at the aircraft, such as the Benish Type F here. The Benish Type F has an E-War electronic warfare system to help excuse me, to help deal with incoming guided air-to-air missiles. So that's helpful there as well. Again, only the 1, so basically it's a one-shot kind of deal. Basically, dealing with supplies and logistics is very much important. You want to be able to use both your supply vehicles, like this one, or your carriers, such as the Madame Louise here. All of which have that supplies line at the bottom there. This one has 35 supplies. Every time you resupply another vehicle, it costs you 1 point from there. So it's also important to keep an eye on that. This carrier is a beast, by the way. And also important is to select the right character to go with your different vehicles. Each unit is going to be controlled by a particular character, and that character's stats have an impact on the performance of those vehicles. So for instance here, Tarira, you can see, has much better accuracy against unarmored targets than against the other ones. And she also adds to the air and ground defense and indirect attack accuracy when she's equipped on a particular unit. Now, she's character level E. When I said that there was a bit of strategy RPG involved, this is what I meant. As you can see, you can get experience points from both attacking enemies, defeating enemies, but especially from attacking enemies, being attacked by enemies, but especially by defeating enemies. That'll get you the most points. Now, the reason why she's still level E is because, unfortunately, if your unit is destroyed during a mission, you lose any experience that you had accumulated, and yeah, I haven't been too careful with this character, unfortunately. I have been a bit better off with some characters like here, Simon Koo over here. He's level C, and already you can see he's a much better, more balanced against armored and unarmored targets here. Better ground defense as well. Versus someone like Mama Louise here, who is very good against enemy warships, so, spaceships. So when we get to a space level, she's definitely going to be one to equip on something powerful there. So let's back out of that. Let's do auto boarding so I can show off the effect here. So you can see here, each vehicle, you can see their individual weapon systems and stuff. And the blue is the base mount, the pink is what's added from the individual character. So you can see here, Peter Kane is pretty damn good with unarmored targets. You can really shred them in that tank. And of course the 25mm auto cannon on the hedgehogs. Actually pretty good against most targets, especially with Ginojo here. She's really good with the Deej. Mr. DM here is really good against unarmored targets. You can see how this was. There's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors kind of aspect to this game, depending on which weapons brought to bear against which targets. But you can compensate or, emphasize that depending on which characters you end up taking. Yeah, he's really good. Oh yeah, Larka anti-air missiles are really nasty. Alright, so let's finish boarding here. So each mission you have your victory conditions. Here it's gain control of a particular enemy command base or defeat all enemy forces. Defeat is if the Scarab team is annihilated. When you receive reinforcements, they form a team of their own that is controlled by the game's AI. So they do not count as part of your team. So even if you have reinforcements still on the board, if all your original team's defeated, well, you're still game over. And time limit 20 turns. Initial allied forces, none. So I don't have any allies with me at the start. So here you then decide. Oh, let's not put. Oh, okay. Well, you can auto confirm, just drop everybody, but generally it's not a good idea because that means that your units are all mixed up randomly. All units are target is Cooper. Don't let him leave. Well, he's already left, so. Heads up. Here's always a little bit thin. Alright, so first thing you're probably going to notice is that the grid is actually, it's a hex-based game, but the grids are squares. I don't know why they did that with this kind of offset grid pattern for the hexes. It does mean that facing is not an issue, since obviously you can't really do facing with this kind of setup. Which is kind of odd, because the Dyson Ryaku games were just regular hexes. So that's interesting. So, one thing I kind of like about this game, the aesthetic is very grounded. It's, this is a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk dystopia. So the colors are, not too garish, so very muted. But it also does, feel very grounded kind of war game to it. So let's see here. Let's move one of our guys. Let's move the supply vehicle into these trenches, keep it protected. So as you can see here, the different elements of terrain have their own impact in terms of defense bonus. So for instance, a plane, this side of the cliffside here, the bump, gives it 10%. Trenches give 45% bonus to your defense. Plane gives 5%, and roads are 0. So roads you can move very quickly on, depending on the vehicle's mobility type, but you are vulnerable there. Same thing goes for bridges and stuff like that. Destroyed roads, like this one here, count as 5%. You also have various buildings, like here, this base here, 50% protection, so bases are really good for that. We also have an airport here, so actually let's move our little infantry guy, custom jacket, and move him and capture this airport. There we go. These buildings are very important because they're where what you use to resupply and refuel whenever you need to. They also allow you to heal as a free action. If we look at the kind of actions we have here, you have move, obvious, attack, also obvious, supply. Supply lets you, again, as I said, refuel and acquire ammunition for all your stuff. It also allows you to use this function as a free action. Repair gets you 1 to 4 HP back on any damaged unit, but it uses up your turn. You have to use it before moving or attacking, and that cancels out the rest of your turn. So it's very much the idea of, can I leave my vehicle here and repair it, hoping that I'll get enough to get up to a good point. Like, if you just repair 1, it's not necessarily very useful. Or should I try to move my vehicle back to a base in order to, actually have a chance to repair it? You also repair automatically when you're inside a carrier-style vehicle. So, for instance, if I want to move this guy here and move it to this transport helicopter I've got, There we go. Board it. This will automatically reset if the vehicle in question has supplies. This would automatically resupply them and also give them a chance to heal while they're in there. This guy I'm going to move to this IFV, the Schneelog, which has these particular stats: 20-meter auto cannon, Wrecker, anti-ground missile, and machine gun. Not exactly necessarily the best vehicle in terms of firepower, but still useful for getting troops around. Because obviously these things move way faster than infantry. You can carry at least one infantry soldier or one drone. Drones are a pain in the ass sometimes, especially the suicide drones that early on they can take out your vehicles quick if they're already damaged or in a weaker state. Let's see here. So let's see. I got this guy here. And Mongoose. What is a Mongoose? 35mm autocannon. Anti-air tank. Okay, yeah, I definitely do not want to bring any of my air vehicles anywhere near that. So this is something that you have to bear in mind. This is a game from 1994. There is very little hand-holding for this thing. You are expected to have read the manual, which luckily has been translated to English, thanks to the people at Nibbles translations. And that manual has quite a bit of information. It has stats about, all the different commands, what that does, weapon systems, some character profiles, which we obviously have in the index. Also some profiles on the different vehicles, which I wish was in the game as well. I understand that games back then, you really were very limited on how much data you could fit inside those cartridges, so I get it. But, it would have been nice to have the vehicle index along with the characters and history there. If ever Sega were to do a port or remaster of this game, that's something I would definitely add in. That would be pretty cool. Because it comes with background on the various vehicles and stuff like that, which is always nice to have. Yeah. In any case, yeah, you have the different, supply classes, because not every vehicle is supplied the same ways. Like, aircraft, in order to be resupplied and stuff, have to land at an airport. They can't do it at a regular base. That's why it's very important to capture this early on. Also, they can only be refueled while in the air by, something like a support vehicle, like the Louise here. She can, if any of your vehicles are next to a supply vehicle, they can use the supply command to, resupply. The thing is, with air vehicles, they can only refuel while they're in the air. In order to actually get the rearm and stuff like that, they have to land at a proper base. Now, another thing you can do when you're at a base is swap different different equipment. Obviously, can't do that with this because it's a tank, and trying to swap a tank's turret out is not exactly something you do easily. But for infantry and air vehicles, that you can. So it can be very useful for switching out. Like once you've this guys are equipped for anti-air combat, but once you run out of aircraft to shoot down, it's always good to have some other options. So let's see, is there anything I can kill out here? This guy here. So let's bring this guy here. Let's use the Vulcan on him. And gets these cool animations. I missed. Oh well, it keeps him out of the line of fire. I love these little animations for all these kinds of games, from Advanced Wars or Nectaris or anything like that. I also like the fact that they're not too long. That's something that, often, especially in the PlayStation era of games like that, they often had like these overlong animations. Pro Mission 2 was notorious for that. It's one of the things that was definitely improved from the remakes position. Okay, so let's see. This is, move this here to there. Give it some extra protection. Let's bring this one up here. Shred some infantry. Ow, flamethrower. Flamethrowers are nasty in the sense that they ignore the defense bonus from your terrain. That's the bonus for that. So they're very good for dealing with entrenched positions. Let's see here. Let's bring in, move up. Should I bring it here? No, let's bring it up here. Confirm and bring up some tanks protected. Yeah, there we go. Probably shouldn't have moved it that far ahead, but whatever. Don't necessarily need to play that well right now. Oh, yeah, that one already equipped. Yeah, boarding stuff obviously uses up the turn for whatever you just boarded. Okay. That could possibly be a problem. I should probably put some of the guys up here because I know that... Ah, there we go. And reach up here. Attack that helicopter. Anti-air missiles. Oh yeah, that's a good hit right there. So that's probably going to make it retreat to one of its bases. One of the things that's really important, if you can, is to push the attack on any given target because, well, I can't reach the helicopter there, but the basic idea is if you allow an enemy to live, chances are it's going to try to repair itself or retreat to a base and, you know, repair itself there. So your best bet is to focus fire and try to take out an enemy completely before it has a chance to do that. Oh, come on, you could do better than that, man. Can I reach it there? No, okay. Okay, I can't reach it there. Definitely don't want it anywhere near this thing, because this thing here, if I just highlight it, this bastard, radar base, class pillbox, fixed armament, surface-to-air missiles. Yeah. And it's got a 45mm autocannon that shreds aircraft too. So yeah, definitely do not want anything air-related anywhere near this thing. And those SAMs have a range of 4. This is what I mean about not hand-holding. If I didn't already know that, there is nothing here that really tells me that this is an anti-air position. These ones at least have, you know, anti-air pillbox written on them, but those radar positions, nothing. So you could easily just end up, you know, parking one of your helicopters here or something like that, thinking, oh, I'm just going to shoot down this thing and destroy it, and then, you know, then you'll lose radar or something like that. And then you park it there, and then, oh shit, my helicopter just got shot down by a bunch of fucking missiles, you know? This is what I mean about, you know, the kind of thing of like old school difficulty here, because there is nothing really indicating all that stuff, so you just have to wing it. So I could bring that up there, but no, not a good idea just yet. Let's bring this here. Okay, that's alright there. Let's see about where I can move him. Yeah, move that there. Hopefully that'll intercept any aircraft coming its way. Let's place this. Can't move it there. No, let's leave it right there. Yeah, leave the supply vehicle there so it can help out with those guys. And should probably move one of the helicopters somewhere nearby just in case. No, okay, let's leave it right there so we can deal with anything that comes its way there. Alright. Next idle unit. You can select, like, doing this by pressing the B button to select the next available idle unit. Let's get some troops down this way. And we got one more fighter jet. I think I can... Yeah, I can probably take out... Oh, no. Cancel. There we go. Okay, no, it's not a fighter jet. This is a VTOL. So, cancel, move up here, and use that, because this is a ground attack vehicle, so you're better off. Anti-ground missile. I mean, I only got 2 of those. HP 8. Let's go with the bombs. Okay, not too bad. At least did some damage. Alright. There. All means have acted. And end turn. So let's see how long it takes for the enemy to do it, because turns can be a bit long in this game, especially when you have a lot of different vehicles, as we're about to see here. So this one, the steamer, that's their equivalent to the Madame Louise here. It's a carrier. Oh. Okay, did some damage to them with their mongoose. Luckily, they're dumb enough not to heal themselves. Uh-oh. Not good. Incoming missiles. Ow! See what I mean about missile aircraft being really good against tanks? So yeah, there's definitely that whole rock, paper, scissors thing of, you know, different vehicles being most effective against certain targets. Okay, that just boarded. This one too. The good thing is that if I destroy that, anything that's on board will also be destroyed. The bad news is that same thing applies to my stuff. So, there we go. They're bringing up their stuff. There we go. And they have their own artillery there, their own fighter jets. And I think we're almost done. Alright, so that was, by my count, a little bit about almost a minute and a half. So, yeah, as you can imagine, this can take a little while, and this is just turn 2. So I've been talking for a little while there, so you can imagine there. So, let's start doing some damage. We want to avoid attacking that thing head on, so let's see here. First of all, let's take care of their anti-air. Let's see, 150mm rifle gun, machine gun. I think I'll use a different vehicle for this then. Bring out the actual tank here. There we go. Okay, that did some good damage. Now, am I close enough to... No targets in range, unfortunate. How about you? No targets in range, damn it. Gotta have to either wait for them to get closer or destroy them that way. Okay, you can move out of the way. Well, let's see about swapping. Can't swap weapons there. Yeah, he's on an airport, so he can't swap his weapons, unfortunate. Okay, let's get you out of the way then. Well, let's get you simplest protected. There we go. So we want you away from that. There we go. This guy can reach it. Hopefully this will destroy it. There we go. One down. Alright, so we take that guy out. So you notice that this is a carrier, but I couldn't actually bring this guy onto it. It wasn't highlighted. Air carriers like this one can only pick stuff up when they're at an airport. Basically, they have to land in order to get stuff. Versus land carriers, like there's some freaking land, giant, land ships that you encounter occasionally that can carry a whole bunch of stuff and carry a shit ton of weapons. Well, they can obviously, pick stuff up wherever. It's the kind of things you have to pay attention. And you're not going to get, as I said, you're not going to get any tutorials or anything like that. So you basically have to just, either figure it out or trial and error it. Let's take out this aircraft here. Or at least damage it. Good hits. Okay, took some hits, but not too bad. Let's see, do I have anything else that can handle that? I think I can get... And that won't reach. Anti-tank missile, 20mm gun pod. Yeah, these ones are more for these gun chips. They're better for attacking ground targets. see. Should be able to find something I can use to attack that. Let's go with this. Dove, anti-air missile, blow it up. Really? Nothing? Ah. Okay, this is the... Alright, get this one over here. Oof, I'm gonna have to deal with that other vehicle there. Oh no, this is a anti-air one. Okay, so bring it here. Oh, that was the VTOL. There we go. Okay, making some progress there. Yeah, this is basically how the missions progress. You have different, obviously different objectives depending on which kind of mission you're dealing with here. Really want to demonstrate some of the indirect fire here. Okay, let's bring it here. I should be able to get some hits in. Same thing for this one. There are different objectives. Sometimes it's destroy all your enemies, sometimes it's destroy particular enemies, capture a particular site, or else there's also missions where you have to just escape from something, or combinations. The first mission involves either destroying all enemies, destroying particular enemies, or escaping with a couple of units off of one side. So there's a lot of variation in terms of that, in terms of also the terrain, in terms of the vehicles you have. And the vehicles you have are the ones you have. There's no economy here or something like in Advanced Wars where you'll be creating new units depending on the facilities you capture. There's none of that. Let's move this up here. Let's see, who haven't I moved yet? This guy. Oh, wait, actually, move it here. Take out the aircraft. There we go. Oh, managed to get a shot off. Also like the fact that the animations reflect the actual terrain, which is always nice. It's, standard, but it's always nice to see. Okay, they've got one of these little dune buggies here. This is basically how these missions go. You basically have to move your units strategically, trying to find the best defensive positions for them, as well as pressing the attack while not pressing so much that you end up losing units and you're losing the accumulated experience that they have. So let's see. Machine gun. Let's go for the rifle. Hopefully that does enough damage. Okay, not too bad. Alright. Let's take out this helicopter here. Okay, good start. And gun pod. Now let's go with the other fighter here. Fighters are very much. Oh no, he's got the VTOL. Never mind then. So let's send him. Move. Let's see, is there any ground targets I can blow up? Okay, not that one. Well, this one might work. Let's drop some bombs on... Let's see, who's damaged? This guy's damaged. Might have a chance of doing some pretty good damage on the Gavrilo here. Not bad, not bad at all. Don't need to move, just attack. Hopefully that's enough to take it down. There we go. Alright, one less chopper to deal with. Let's fly guy can... Yeah, he's not moving very far. All moves moved. Okay, let's see how badly I fucked up my positioning here, depending on how they deal with the anti-air stuff. Oh, no. See, this is the good thing. If you damage an enemy enough, they may actually take the time to retreat, or just, you know, spend a turn repairing instead. Oh, well, okay. This is how the indirect weapons work. Luckily, it was a grenade launcher against a tank, so not exactly the most effective weapons. Okay, that jet's probably gonna... Okay, move there, tax that. Ow! Oh, this is gonna suck, isn't it? Yeah, and I just lost the infantry guy that was inside as well. Wow. So I just lost 2 units for the price of 1. Come on, do some damage. Okay, who's next? Okay, not attacking. Good. Okay, he's probably going to head over to try and capture that base there. Okay, and luckily those guys aren't attacking. Alright, yeah. So again, as you saw, that takes a while. The good thing is, you have also other commands, like here you can have the little mini-map to move around quickly like that, which is always handy. You can also load and save at any point during a mission. Which means if you're finding that the mission's taking too long, you need to, you know, stop and do something else, save the game, turn everything off, come back to it later. So, you know, not too much worry about that. You get a full map that shows you the positioning of everything you've got in the map. Got there. Flashing stuff is obviously units. Go right there. Unit list is a list of all your units that allows you to immediately find the one you're looking for, select it, and it takes you right to it. So you saw there also, it gives you the XY coordinates for each and every one, along with their stats, fuel, is there anything on board, which anything like that, order units like that, current state, very handy. And you have your list of objectives, you want to see that. There's also supply all. It will immediately resupply every unit that's in a position to resupply. So either they're next to a supply vehicle or on a base. So that's always useful. And configuration here, music on. Battle speed normal means you get the full animations. Quick means you only get animations that apply to your own characters. So nothing that applies to, say, for instance, enemies attacking allies, your allies, something like that. And hex grid on or off.
Let's go.
There you go. So if you want something a bit more clean. So let's see here. Let's fuel left 21. You have to be careful about that. There. Drop some bombs on the artillery. Oh yeah, that was good. Very good hits there. And finish it off. There we go. Wrecked. Alright, let's do one more turn before I call it quits. Really, this game is obviously it's a throwback, but you know, it's something that I think a lot of people would probably enjoy playing if they knew about it. At least, you know, strategy gamers and stuff like that. It's got enough depth to it to really, really make it worth checking out, I think. Now, one thing I would hope eventually, if ever Sega, you know, gets the wind of the fact that it's been translated and people are, you know, interested. So, okay, this one has anti... Yeah. Bit of a slowdown there. One thing that I would love to see is an actual, if not a port remaster, then at least a port of it with some better, compatibility, because as you can see there, there's a bit of slowdown, something where I'm using RetroArch right now to play this, so sometimes you get a little bit of slowdown. Alright, attack that, or attack this guy, or this guy. Let's go for the tank. So, what would I like to see going forward with this? Well, obviously, having an official port and translation would be pretty cool, along with, like I mentioned, like a few tweaks, like possibly adding like tool tips so that you can actually look over something and, not have to go through 3 or 4 menus in order to see all the stats on things. That would actually be pretty cool. Having it obviously be on PC and being, compatible with mouse. I would honestly not have him change anything about the presentation. I actually, maybe, obviously, like, up-res it a bit, but honestly, there's nothing wrong with the presentation as is. The only thing maybe I would change would be to actually just have the game look, if possible, like a Junsuemi piece of artwork. If they could somehow do that, let's attack this guy again. If they could somehow get that art style to work with the game as its emotion stuff, like, really? Nothing? God damn it. Should have had him attack those other guys. But having the game actually look like that would be pretty goddamn cool. I think we can agree. Let's go with the anti-tank missile here. Yes! Alright, 1 tank less. That's satisfying right there. Let's see if I can bring something to bear against this guy here. Can I? Okay, I think maybe I can bring this guy. Yes! Hopefully that's enough to destroy him. Come on, Peter. Yes! Perfect. Once we get rid of their mobile anti-air stuff, it's going to be really much easier to deal with. Okay, I can't move that guy there. Let's see, maybe if I move him here. I actually know to keep on the city. Do some damage to this guy, Norman. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though. This game is pretty much a one-shot. There was nothing, surrounding it, no anime adaptation or manga or something like that, or any kind of guides or anything like that. I would have loved to see, however, there was a possibility of a sequel of some kind. Because the game does end on enough of a, I guess, not really cliffhanger, but there's enough places where this story could go that I think it would have been interesting to do some follow-ups on. Yeah, nothing. Simply due to, the position, like, the different factions are still at least somewhat in action, although obviously their positions have changed, and some are in a bit more precarious positions than others. There's also, the fact of these ancient Martian ruins and stuff like that, and Mars gradually being terraformed because of the actions of this game. There's a lot of places that could go with that. Part of the initial concept of this game had actual aliens involved in some places. There's a concept art of some kind of giant, hexapod-looking monster attacking a tank, so that's pretty cool in and of itself. Let's go with the machine guns, better against infantry. But yeah, and I also would like to see the continuing stories of these characters. They're actually, pretty fun people to learn about and to follow as they go through these different adventures and, misadventures. So yeah, The Hybrid Front is as I mentioned, a game from 1994, only recently now available in English thanks to the very hard work from Nebulous Translations. This is a game that I recommend trying out for any strategy gamers out there. If you're the kind of person who's new to strategy games, it might be a bit much for you, simply because of how, in-depth all the systems are and everything like that. Still, I highly recommend checking it out. At the very least, giving it a try if you can. The patch and translation patch and translation manual will be in the description, so feel free to check it out. I'm also going to put in the link for a website I found in Japanese. You can just use, Google Translate that. It's got stats for everything. It's got strategy guides for the stuff. It's one of the few places I've been able to find some actual, good in-depth information on this stuff. So if you want a bit more, technical data on the game's systems and stats, that's a pretty good place to look. I have been Zero Sum. This has been the Hybrid Front, and I'm gonna shoot the fuck out of this helicopter with a weapon that has no more ammo. Okay, never mind, but this one. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.